Hey folks, this is Riker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include Diablo 4's second season, surprise Steam announcement, and Expansion 1, the death of the Overwatch League, World of Warcraft's Dwarf expansion hints, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the description below, but right before you skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. Now before I move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, Incogni. You ever wonder how you get spam calls, texts, and emails? It's because thousands of companies are collecting, aggregating, and trading your personal data, and it's all legal. But you have the right to demand that a data broker deletes whatever personal information they have about you. The thing is, to track down and contact all the companies to make these requests, there's just too many. That's where Incogni comes in. It's a service that does it all for you. It reaches out to data brokers on your behalf, requests your data be removed, and then deals with any pushback they may give. And you'd be surprised at how much of your personal info may be out there. Not just your full name, email, and phone number, but also things like your employment history, your home address, your relatives, maybe even your social security number. So here's my dashboard. And you can see that I have 18 requests in progress and 25 requests completed. Spam texts had reached an all-time high for me a few months ago. Now, I don't know if it's because I signed up for some store's loyalty card or what's going on, maybe some big data breach. You hear stories of like LinkedIn had data of hundreds of millions of its users scraped and sold off on the dark web. When you do online shopping, there's tons of opportunity for your info to just get out there and spread around. But once you use Incogni and you give it time to do its thing over a couple of months, spam messages start slowing down and pretty much stop altogether at some point. So take back your data, stop the spam, go to incogni.com/Riker and use code Riker to get an exclusive offer of 60% off. That's incogni.com/Riker and use code Riker, or click the link below to take your personal data off the market. Starting with Diablo 4 news, while the general sentiment seems to be D4 bad, one person who doesn't think D4 is bad is Elon Musk, who streamed himself playing his level 100 druid while testing out the streaming capabilities of the platform formerly known as Twitter and currently known as X. He's playing a werewolf build using Earthen Bulwark, and he ended his play session by noting that he still had a lot of things to improve for X's streaming capabilities. Now this week also saw the big 2-hour developer update where we got a deep dive into Season 2 of Diablo 4. I have a full video giving the summary of all the salient points from that stream right there. In short, this season is significantly bigger than Season 1. It's a big step in the right direction, big improvements being made here. The job's not done, there's still a long ways to go, but we're getting there. And I can say so far, while Season 1 didn't meet my expectations, Season 2 has now exceeded my expectations. The combination of Season 2 plus the massive patch that is adding stuff just to the base game, to the Eternal Realm, the 5 bosses, endgame bosses to hunt for unique items. That's just rolled out to Eternal Realm permanently in the game forever now. Overall, this was a big win for the game. Now we also got during the stream the very surprise announcement of Diablo 4 already coming to Steam with the launch of Season 2 on October 17th. Now, we knew that Blizzard was going to be migrating its games to Steam. I never would have thought that D4 would have come so fast to Steam. Overwatch 2 released on Steam, but Overwatch 2 is free to play. It's been out for a year. I really wasn't expecting D4 so soon on Steam. And one thing that's definitely going to happen, it's going to get review bombed. We're going to see people buy the game, they're going to have like 0.1 hour on record, if that. They're going to leave their negative review, and then they're going to refund the game. So I'm expecting either mostly negative or overwhelmingly negative reviews on Steam for D4 within the first week. And then in the long term, people will start pointing to the Steam player counts to say the game is dead. Even though most people are playing not on Steam, they'll be playing on PC and on the PlayStation and Xbox, but people are going to be like, oh look, there's only 10,000 people or whatever on Steam, D4 dead. I'm just forecasting topics I'm going to be talking about in future news updates. Now also in Diablo news this week, we got some pretty massive hints to suggest that Diablo 4's first expansion is coming relatively soon. we saw patch 2.0 hit Blizzard's CDNs. Basically, this is something that is data mined, and we know that Season 2 is patch 1.2, Season 1 was patch 1.1, so for us to be incrementing all the way to 2.0, historically Blizzard has reserved this for an expansion. So I think we're gearing up for a BlizzCon reveal of Expansion 1, but full details in that video over here. Then in related Overwatch news, we got the reveal of the Halloween event, or sorry, it's not the Halloween event, it's kind of the Halloween event. It's the next season, which is called Rise of Darkness, which is a big Diablo crossover with an event for Halloween. It's a new Junk and Science Revenge with a Diablo-themed map. Moira is getting a Lilith skin. There's a whole bunch of Halloween-themed cosmetics. A new map is being added, Samoa. In other Overwatch news, it seems Blizzard is shutting down its Overwatch League, the official esports program. They're apparently looking to reboot it in some way, but after the grand finale, the grand finals of Season 6, the Overwatch League is officially over. Blizzard put out a statement stating, with the completion of the 2023 Overwatch League season, we will be focusing on building our vision of a revitalized esports program. We're eager to share more with you as details are finalized. The casters gave an emotional goodbye speech, and it remains unclear in what form, if any even, we will see a return of some kind of formalized Overwatch esports. The league lasted 6 years, but the writing has been on the wall for some time now that things are coming to an end. Back in June, a company that owned one of the teams, super briefly, so the Overwatch League, there's a bunch of teams that compete. It's kind of like the NFL, but these teams are privately owned by other organizations, not by Blizzard. So people, organizations, companies would purchase a team to compete in the league. And one of these teams, one of the owners of one of these teams in June came out and said, yeah, Blizzard actually forgave all of our debts. Our outstanding franchising fees, yeah, they just waived them. And then after that, Blizzard started to offer $6 million as a breakup fee to any team that would not renew their contract. Now, Overwatch's popularity has been waning over the years. Again, it exploded when it first released, but without much new happening, the game's popularity was dipping, and it seems the esports popularity was dipping as well. And one major, or arguably the final nail in the coffin there, was Blizzard's breakup with NetEase and it exiting the Chinese market. The Overwatch League had about 19 teams, and 4 of those were from China. That's over a quarter of the teams. And according to some leaks, in 2020 and 2021, up to 90% of the viewership for the Overwatch League came from China, at least for the grand finals. So ever since Blizzard broke up with NetEase, NetEase was Blizzard's partner to distribute games in China. An American company cannot distribute, or if any foreign company cannot distribute games in China without going through a Chinese company having a Chinese partner. So all of Blizzard's games, ever since this breakup, no longer playable in China. Then back in July, Blizzard laid off about 50 people from its esports department. So while it is putting out this message that they're going to revitalize their esports endeavors, now that said, esports has been very expensive for Blizzard. They went all in on esports many years ago, going really big with the Overwatch League. They were really trying to build a North American esports scene. Esports historically has always been massive in South Korea. It's been pretty big in Europe, or grew to be pretty big in Europe, but North America always kind of lagged behind in popularity, and Blizzard invested heavily into esports. It was a money pit. It was a couple years ago, as Blizzard's revenue was going down and Activision began to install more lieutenants within the executive board of Blizzard, that costs in esports started to get cut. So while it is sad that this is coming to an end, and we're likely never going to see something as big as the Overwatch League as we knew it coming out of Blizzard for esports, it's not exactly unexpected, especially coupled with Overwatch's waning popularity. In some Cyberpunk news, CDPR revealed that the game has sold a total of 25 million copies, including expansion copies of Phantom Liberty. Since its September 25 launch, Phantom Liberty has sold 3 million copies. Cyberpunk itself launched in December 2020. Of those 3 million Phantom Liberty sales, 68% were on PC, 20% on PS5, and 13% on Xbox. Now, it should be noted that part of the reason that these statistics are so skewed towards PC is that when the game first launched in 2020, it was only available on PC and old-gen consoles. And they really shouldn't even have released on the old-gen consoles because the experience was terrible. Those machines could not handle the game. It was only in 2022 that the game released on PS5 and Xbox Series XS. All that said, though, CDPR really is a PC-first developer. So all these factors together, it makes sense that most of the sales would be on PC. I just didn't expect that overwhelming of a majority. In other news, Assassin's Creed Mirage released this week, and it seems to be, mediocre. The game has a 77 top critic average rating, with 76% of critics recommending it. Seems like the kind of game that's worth picking up when it goes on sale. Critics seem to be saying that it is a nice return to form for the franchise, going back to focus on the kind of gameplay that formed the roots. But it seems that instead of building this from scratch, they basically just took Assassin's Creed Valhalla and stripped it of all of its RPG elements and just left the elements that are core to the original gameplay of the series, of the franchise. And honestly, this kind of makes sense because allegedly this originally was being just developed as a DLC for Valhalla. Again, this isn't a full-on, full-price game. It's a smaller scope project, more akin almost to a AA, but still from a AAA publisher. And I do wish that was the worst news I had about Ubisoft this week, but we'll get to that a bit later. In other news, thanks to some data mines, we have a pretty good idea of what the next World of Warcraft expansion might be. A data mine shows a mount called the Algarian Stormrider. Seems this will be rewarded to players who purchase the heroic edition of the upcoming 11.0 expansion. Now, some people are pointing towards, oh, Warcraft Rumble is going to be releasing, there's some cross-promotion there. But if we look at this mount again, the Algarian Stormrider. Recently within World of Warcraft, a new area was foreshadowed called Kaz Algar. Algarian Stormrider. And for a while, there have actually been a lot of data mined assets relating to dwarves. And we see talk of the existence of a group of earthen dwarves who succumbed to the curse of flesh, who created their own settlement. And this Kaz Algar is meant to be an earthen area. So the leading theory right now is that WoW's next expansion will be a dwarf-focused expansion in which we go to Kaz Algar and we meet these new dwarves. Given Blizzard's release cadence of WoW expansions, fair to guess that this would release in 2024 and that it's going to be revealed in full at BlizzCon this year on November 3rd. Then in some very quick Minecraft dungeon news, the game has reached 25 million players, which is impressive because this game is not free to play. It released in 2020 on PC and console. We have an old video giving my first impressions of it here. As best as I can remember, it sort of felt like baby's first ARPG. And the game didn't get amazing reviews, it got pretty mediocre reviews. 25 million copies sold for a mediocre game is outstanding. And it must be, well, I'm assuming it's just because of the power of the Minecraft brand, but I don't know, maybe over time the game has continued to get updates. I turn the question to you folks, are any of you still playing Minecraft Dungeons? If so, tell me what's going on. Has this game turned into an amazing game? Why did 25 million people buy this? Sound off in the comments. In other news, we're seeing more and more layoffs in the gaming industry. This time, Naughty Dog, developers of Last of Us. Now these guys made Uncharted as well. They're a first-party studio owned by PlayStation. Sources say at least 25 people were let go. Well, okay, there's some misrepresentation here. It's contracts that ended that were not renewed. So no full-time staff were apparently let go. Most of the people that were let go came from QA, but there was also art and production people who did not have their contracts renewed. The overall size of Naughty Dog's team as of July this year was about 400. So this isn't a huge wave of layoffs, it's maybe 5% of people. But as per a Bloomberg report, it seems this might be related to the development of their latest title. This would have been a live service multiplayer spin-off game based on The Last of Us. Allegedly what happened was that during the summer, the company Bungie, which was acquired by Sony in recent history, came in and reviewed the project and they didn't like it. So since then, resources have been diverted away from this project. According to Kotaku sources, this project is now on ice. And in other downsizing news, Team 17, the developers of Worms, famously it's their probably most well-known title, they're also suffering some significant losses. The company's CEO, first off, after being around for 2 years, has left, allegedly parting on amicable terms. The entire studio is now within a period of consultation as they're effectively looking at how to restructure, and allegedly significant job losses are to be expected. Around 50 people, most of the studio's internal QA team, is expected to be affected. Instead, they'll be looking to outsource QA to third parties. That's generally cheaper for a studio to do. For those who don't know, there are third-party QA firms. Anyone who's looking to get into the video game industry, by the way, that's one of the best ways. You work for a third-party QA firm. Companies hire these firms to just, for the duration of a project or some amount of time, QA their games. It's cheaper than having a permanent person on staff. Of course, having a permanent person on staff is better, but not all studios could afford to have an army of QA internally. So what you tend to see is you have some internal permanent QA staff, and then when you need to do big tests, you will outsource. Earlier this year, we also saw layoffs at Team 17 amongst the internal development staff. As of 2019, they employed about 200 people, so if their numbers remained about the same, and they lost some people earlier this year, and now they're losing another 50 people, this is a huge reduction in staff. Team 17 has been around forever, since 1990. I mean, they're legends. I'm sure every one of us has played Worms at some point in our lives. The thing is, they're not known for a whole lot else. They've developed and published tons of games over the years, but most of what we know them for is just Worms. They published and then acquired and then developed Overcooked and Overcooked 2. Great games, by the way, super fun. And starting around 2018, Team 17 actually entered a pretty significant period of growth and acquisition. So it was by the end of 2019 that their number of employees rose to 200. We don't have the numbers since then, but in theory it could have continued to grow since then. It does seem like they acquired and partnered with more companies since 2019, so it's possible now that, you know, this loss of 50 employees doesn't account for, you know, 25% of the studio. If that studio had grown to, you know, who knows, maybe 300, 400, we really don't have a number there. Then in Ubisoft news, 5 former Ubisoft executives have been arrested by French police following a sexual harassment investigation. Now, back in summer 2020, we probably spoke about this at the time, a big story exploded about Ubisoft, allegations of widespread abuse, harassment, discrimination. After this story, 2 executives left the company. 2 of these guys are amongst these 5. And according to one of the plaintiff's lawyers, this whole thing goes beyond just these 5 individuals and points to something systemic within Ubisoft. And lastly, ending on a more upbeat note, Red Dead Redemption, number 1, not number 2, quietly got a patch that added a 60 FPS option. Game was always locked at 30 FPS. A new patch released, now you can do 60 FPS. So Rockstar, that means Red Dead Redemption 2 next, yeah? Free patch, 60 FPS? And that's gonna wrap up this week's news, but you should have checked out last week's video in which we covered how Lilith has a gun now, apparently. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Riker's Raiders for more gaming content.